Hello and welcome to the Pathfinders Summer Institute 2020. My name is Kate Maloney and I'm the Executive Director of the Infosys Foundation USA. The mission of the foundation is to expand access to computer science and maker education for K-12 students and teachers across the US. The Pathfinders Institute is core to that mission. We believe the best way to reach those students is to invest in each and every one of you, their exceptional teachers. And exceptional you have surely been this past spring semester. Despite COVID's disruption to your classrooms, you all transitioned overnight to a new model of virtual learning and remote teaching. There was no playbook. You were creative, you collaborated, you innovated, and tried to bring the very best to your students. And not only that, but then when you received the invitation to join the Pathfinders Summer Institute this summer, you raised your hand for even more professional development. Now is our chance to give back to you. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the faces of the Infosys Foundation team. Each and every one of us is really so excited to have you. We've been preparing over these months and are thrilled so many have joined. Normally, if we were on the Indiana University campus, we'd pop into your classrooms and say hello, hear your stories, what brought you here, and perhaps even the communications team would want to do a little video recording. This year is going to be a little bit different. You still may see our faces, but this time it's going to be probably popping into your Zoom classrooms. But don't mind us, we're just there to say hello, to offer support, and to encourage you. In light of all that you did go through this spring, we took some time to put a video together to demonstrate our appreciation and to convey to all of you that we really feel you are the heroes. We'll take a moment to share that video now.
Please give me hands and eyes. Times have changed.
They have always adapted.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing today?
Teachers are unsung heroes.
Overcoming challenges, they have always carried on.
Yeah, things are difficult. That doesn't mean that we stay stagnant. That means that we grow and get better.
Education saves lives. That's why I do what I do.
Good work, guys.
Now more than ever, we thank our teachers for their work.
A few of you may recognize your faces in that video. The magic of Pathfinders is truly dependent upon our PD providers. They are exceptional, and we always want to take a moment to recognize all of you for all the hard work that you put into preparing for our teachers this summer. It was a bit rocky in the month of March when we were trying to figure out if we are going to keep Pathfinders alive and switch to this virtual model, and you are all in there with us, and we're so appreciative. To all the teachers who are listening, you must know you're in for a fantastic week. So a little bit about all of you. Those of you who have joined us before know the foundation loves our statistics, but I think in light of the fact that you are not going to be together on campus, it's important to know who's among you. So this is the summer class of 2020. We're thrilled to have over 424 teachers who have come from across the US. 239 of you are teaching at the K-5 level, which is fantastic. 161 of you are middle school teachers, and another 110 are teaching computer science and maker ed at the high school level. This next number we love. 173 teachers are completely new to teaching computer science. This is the perfect professional development experience to have. You're in a safe, encouraging place, and we are really so appreciative that you are willing to lean in, particularly after the spring you had. 328 of you are from Title I schools. I think we have all read the news and you all have lived the challenges that have come in light of COVID for your students. We're thrilled to be able to support you this summer and hope you have an exceptional time. 126 of you keep coming back for more. This is the number we also love. This represents teachers who are here not just for a second or a third, but are here for their 4th Pathfinders Institute. I encourage you to find out who those teachers are among you and hear about their experience. In person, there's usually a bit of healthy competition from teachers across the US to see who's represented the best. The largest number of you are coming this summer from California, 72 of you. This is the time that usually the auditorium erupts in applause. So we'll virtually be high-fiving the Californians. We have 37 of you from Texas and 19 from Indiana, which makes us really happy because the Hoosiers are the ones who are usually welcoming us to Bloomington. A quick note that Massachusetts, New York, and New Mexico are also well represented. It makes me happy to share that this Summer Institute also has the participation of recent InfyMaker Award winners from 2020, as well as the teachers who just learned last week that they were awarded the Computer Science Teaching Excellence Award for 2020. So a special congratulations to both of them as well. I know you all are coming from across the country to be a part of Pathfinders, but I would guess you all share a similar thread, a similar passion for knowing that your students, if they're going to be successful in the future, need these computer science and these maker ed skills. And really, we truly tip our hat to all of you for investing in your own professional development to bring that to those students. This year, if we're lucky, our estimate is when you all return to your classrooms, be they hybrid models, we will impact over 12,000 students. So again, normally when we're on the campus of Bloomington, you all have taken an airplane, retrieved your bag at baggage claim, usually said hello to our welcome desk and snagged a Pathfinders cookie, and then raced to the campus to join us in the real live auditorium. Tonight, you're in a virtual auditorium, but we hope you enjoy the evening's program of speakers just as well from the comfort of your homes. We've invited the following 4 faces that you see on the screen to be speakers. A couple of them have recorded messages for you, and 2 of them are going to be here live for a Q&A. We have a maker. We have a zany physics professor. We have a young and aspiring Netflix actress. And we have the CEO of a multimedia children's toy company. Look forward for all of you to hear their remarks. Our first speaker is Emily Pilliton. Emily is a maker. She's a designer, an entrepreneur, and an educator. And she has founded Girls Garage, which is a nonprofit in California, 100% committed to empowering girls to make. So those of you who have signed up for Maker Education curricula this week, I think you really want to tune in and be inspired by Emily's remarks. Let's hear what she has to say.
As a young girl, I just grew to love using power tools, pouring concrete, and doing things that were scary and loud, and yet I looked around and realized no other girls are doing these things. As I grew up, I realized that girls need to see themselves in this space. Start here. So that's what I set out to do, and I became an educator and a mentor for young girls.
No masks down till clear.
Making teaches girls how to think of their ideas as important.
Go light.
It changes the way they think about what they're capable of. If I can fuse metal, what can't I do?
Perfect.
Look at how good that was.
And so I think making for girls is about voice, and that's what's really exciting because we're building the world we want to see for ourselves. Now I want to hear why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
Hi everybody, I'm Emily Pilliton. I'm the founder and executive director of Girls Garage. And I'm really excited to kick off the Pathfinders Institute with you virtually. It's a shame we can't all be together in person, What a time we're in. But it's really exciting to be able to connect this way. And I just wanted to share some stories and a couple ideas that might help set your own thinking or inspire you to think about making in a different way in this moment. So I'm the founder of a nonprofit called Girls Garage, which is where I'm standing right now. It's a nonprofit organization and also a physical space here in Berkeley, California. And we teach girls in after school and summer programs, carpentry, welding, architecture, engineering. We do activist artwork, and it's a physical space that is truly a diverse community of young makers. So I just wanted to start by saying that this space and my making and building practice actually began for me when I was a young person. And so I think it's quite appropriate that we're all gathered to talk about what it means to be a maker as a young person and what we as educators can do to help create a maker practice from a young age. So when I was 16 years old, I was part of a group of teenagers from all around the country that traveled to Central America, and over the course of the summer, I learned how to build. I lived in a small town with a family, and we built as a group of about 20 different volunteers, both local and teenagers from all over the US. We built an entire town park, and I learned how to mix and pour concrete. I learned how to frame walls and a roof with lumber. I learned how to use a machete to level a whole field of weeds, and that experience, not just the manual labor of it, but the act of making something that would live in the world truly changed the way fundamentally that I felt about my role in the world, my power in the world, and that I had the power to create things that would improve others' lives and that would connect me as a human being to others. And so that's what made me fall in love with architecture. And so in many ways, my love of architecture and building and making comes from that experience I had as a young person. And I hope that what happens in this space at Girls Garage feels the same way for young people as well. So all that to say that I think that we have a special opportunity, especially right now in this crazy year we're in, between a pandemic and some really important and pressing issues that it's been too long that have gone unaddressed. We've seen really inspiring protests, and we're coming up on an election. So this is a moment, and I think it's a really special moment for us as makers and as educators to think about how we will contribute to a dialogue and to contribute real work with our young people that will change a narrative and incite change. And this is a way we haven't always thought about making before, that sometimes making for the sake of making is great, but we really have a responsibility and a duty right now, I think, not just to be making things that matter, but to be supporting our young people as they're asking questions about their future and how the act of making fits into that. So I want to just leave you with 3 ideas, 3 ways that we can think about making right now, given everything that the context that we're in right now. The first is to think about how you might use the act of making as a voice, as a way to give voice and to amplify the voices of students. I say this because I went to art school, I went to architecture school, and then I went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and I got an MFA. And being in art school taught me something very important that has changed the way I think about making also. And that is that most artists start their practice with an inquiry as to who they are and what their identity is, and the work stems from that. And often making, and specifically design or engineering or building, is often decoupled from who we are as humans. We're often asked to meet the needs of a client or to deliver something that's functional, and we sort of remove our own voice from that making. And I think what's happening right now and what our young people are hungry for is actually to bring that voice back and to get in touch with the parts of themselves that make up their identity, that is intersectional, that is complex, that might be about gender or race or the neighborhood you grew up in, and that all of those things matter in a making space. So for educators, I think it's important for us to consider projects that don't shy away from that and that actually ask students to investigate and represent their own identity in tangible ways. So one way that we've done this, I'm actually about to start a project virtually with our teen girls this summer, where we're doing a project called Building Our Own Seat at the Table. And every girl is going to make a wooden chair, and the process to make that chair is mostly uniform. The materials are the same, some of the structural joinery is the same, but there are a couple key creative choices they can make to use the chair as a canvas to tell their story. So they can decide what type of graphic they're going to put on the seat, how they're going to use the back as almost as a billboard to represent their own ideas. And so every chair, while they will have been built in mostly the same way, will end up looking completely different and will all tell the stories of individual girls. So I love thinking about maker projects like this that are tangible, that have some kind of uniformity amongst a group, but that have a lot of room for young people to bring their voice, to share their voice, and to make their work represent their life story. The second thing is to consider making as an impetus to create community. And I mean this in a couple different ways. If we were able to gather, we would all know what this means. Like, to gather in a maker space is really a special thing. To have girls in the girls' garage, physically here, feels like a community. And that feels a little tenuous right now. We can't gather in the same way. And so I think we have to consider how we can use making as an asset that makes us feel closer as humans, rather than more distanced, which already we feel so distanced. So one way I've thought about this, is to create projects that actually are only achievable with many people. So instead of considering projects that happen on one tabletop by one young person in one home, how can we come up with projects that are actually pieces and modules that are then assembled and maybe come together in a hugely powerful way? One thing that I'm doing with girls right now is we're building a small cubby shelf for a food pantry that's down the street. And this cubby shelf is made up of 28 different cubes, and I have 28 girls who are assembling those cubes in their own home, and they'll all be put together here, and it's going to be a huge built-in shelf for the food pantry. So even though the model in which we're teaching is a little bit different, I think maintaining ambition around what we can do together and coming up with projects that ask people to contribute something to a greater whole is a wonderful way to stay connected. And then the third way I think about making, especially right now, is as a form of activism and power. And I mean power in the literal sense of using a power tool, but more importantly as really a force for political power. And I don't mean to make this partisan, but I do feel like making, because it is such a tangible and real way of representing our stories, that it is a great opportunity to contribute to a conversation about what's happening in the world right now. Especially for our young students, they are feeling the things happening in the world in a very acute way. And so I think giving them the making tools to participate in a civic process, whether that's literally like opening my space for girls to make protest signs, which we did last weekend, or just being open to making your maker education a little bit more socially engaged. Where are the places in civic society where making can be tangible? Where can it live in a way that feels like we're contributing and responding to something? I also think about this outside of our current time, just that the act of making is hugely hopeful, that any young person who gets to stand up and say, I built that thing, or I made that, they've contributed to and changed the world in some small way. And that's powerful, to experience your own ability to edit and author your own world. I have a group of teenagers who are working on a huge, like a 500 square foot chicken coop right now. And it was designed by them. It's 14 teenage girls. They designed every detail. They're building every single part of it. And this is for an urban farm in nearby Richmond. And so I think about that too as power, that for young girls and for students of color who have traditionally been left out of the creation of the built environment, that making gives them a pathway to have a say in what the world looks like. And this is really important as we look at the statistics in STEM and in tech and in architecture. We know which groups are underrepresented. And so I think to give young people a voice early to get to shape something in their world creates a sense of power that they will carry into those careers and into their lives. I talk about building the world we want to see, and I think that's how I think about making most, that for young people, we truly are giving them the tools, both literal and metaphorical, to build the world that they want to see. So I will leave it at that. I am so excited to have gotten to share some thoughts with you, and I really wish that we could connect in person. I want to encourage any of you to reach out to me. Our website is girlsgarage.org. I'm Emily at girlsgarage.org, and I hope that you have a wonderful virtual experience together. And I have to say, I feel so privileged to be connected to a community of maker educators who, in this moment and always, are thinking about what we can do with young people to create change in the world. And that's really getting emotional. That's really exciting to me, and it makes me feel hopeful about the future. So thank you for being part of that community, and thank you for listening, and have a wonderful week.
A special thank you to Emily for those remarks. And just a quick note to let you know that Emily has just published a book. It's called Girls Garage: How to Use Any Tool, Tackle Any Project, and Build the World You Want to See. And we have a few signed copies of that book that we'll be giving out at our award ceremony to some of the winners. So just to entice you a little bit, and you'll learn more about that award ceremony later tonight. So our next speaker is David Wright. He is a physics professor from Tidewater Community College in Virginia, where he has been teaching since 1974. David has an incredible passion for physics, but also he has a super unique ability to connect and inspire his students. They recently shared some of his classroom lessons on Twitter and managed to get over 28 million views. So something good is going on here. I do want to tell you that after we hear David's recorded remarks, he is here live with us for a Q&A. So as you watch, please be thinking of the questions that you may want to pose, and I'll invite you to do so through the Q&A feature on your screen in a few moments. So let's take a look at the following video. I'm sure, without a doubt, David is going to energize you.
Like being a human hockey puck.
On his homemade hoverboard,
Here we go, give me a push.
college physics professor David Wright teaches us Newton's first law. Motion stays in motion.
You have to be enthusiastic in the class because physics has got a reputation as being dull and boring.
No chance of dozing off in Wright's classroom. He's been sharing the gravity of a science he loves at Virginia's Tidewater Community College since 1974. At almost 70, a magnetic machine of energy. Slingshotting himself into demonstrations with fire, pogo sticks, even a bed of nails.
I feel kind of guilty sometimes. They're paying me to have fun.
One student posted this stunt montage just yesterday on Twitter, already watched more than 13 million times.
You have to be going into that classroom every day thinking, what is this guy going to do today?
Literally, yes. Literally.
His class is a roller coaster ride. And while Wright gets thrills from the physics of skydiving and bungee jumping, nothing compares to teaching.
Look what happened.
Using a closet collection of gadgets to engage and inspire.
Nice job. You're a natural. Yeah. I love coming to work in the morning. I've loved every minute of it.
A passion and a purpose even science can't explain. Katie Beck, NBC News, Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Wright, and I love physics. I also love to teach. I want to commend each of you for being here at the Pathfinders Summer Institute. You're terrific, hardworking teachers striving to become better. Now, in my 45 years of teaching at Tidewater Community College, I've been involved in a lot of professional conferences, attended workshops, read journal articles, talked to colleagues, experimented in the classroom, and trying a way to make my instruction and my teaching better. I love professional development. Let's start by talking about the principle of inertia. Inertia says that objects at rest stay at rest, and objects in motion stay in motion at a straight line at a constant speed unless acted upon by an outside force. Let's see how this works. We've got some dishes. They're at rest. They want to stay at rest. If I pull hard and fast, they'll do that. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Now, over here in the back of my room here, you'll see an egg, a raw egg on top of a PVC pipe, a pizza pan, and then a container of water underneath. I'm going to use this broom as a striker. It's going to apply force to the pizza pan, knocking the pizza pan that way. but nothing attacks the egg. It should fall straight down because of the principle of inertia. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Try it again. 1, 2, 3. Ah, perfect. Okay. Now the next principle of inertia has to do with this wheel. It's a bicycle wheel. I'm going to start it spinning. I apply a force to get it going. What keeps it going? I ask my students that question all the time. They say inertia, but no, nothing keeps it going. Inertia is the name of the principle. Inertia is not a force. It'll spin forever until the friction eventually slows it down. But why does it keep going? The answer is, we have no idea. Just the nature of things. That's the answer to a lot of questions in physics. Why do protons attract electrons? And the answer is, because they do. It's their nature. Now, people say that education has a lot of inertia. That means it's hard to get things moving, either to get them started or to change their direction. You may have colleagues that have been teaching the same way for many, many years and have no desire to make any changes in what they're doing. You're the Pathfinders Institute. You're going to break that status quo. You have great instruction. You're going to collaborate with peers. You're going to have an educational, interactive, and fun experience. And you're going to want to share the experiences with your classes when you get home. You can't wait to do that. Now, you're starting off on a new track, but how do you do it with little funding? Well, one idea is that manual I gave to you beforehand, the video and demo manual. A lot of exercises and things to do that are easy and cheap. I'll give you an example. Even if you're not a physics person, there'd be a lot of exercise you can use in your classes too. This is a koosh ball, my favorite physics demonstration device. It's very versatile. It's like the Swiss Army knife of physics demonstration devices. It's so useful. It's easy to see, colorful, easy to catch, and it doesn't bounce. Now, if I toss it back and forth like this, it follows a nice parabolic path, which is what free fall is all about. If I hold it by a couple of strands and I spin it very fast, it flattens out. That's pretty cool. And then it also oscillates back and forth. It's a torsional pendulum. Ooh. Now, if I take the koosh ball and I go this way and toss the koosh ball that way, watch what happens. The koosh ball just dropped down. That's an example of relative velocity. That's so cool. Now, we can also do this. Put the koosh ball on a board, hanging from a board like this, spin in a circle, and the koosh ball stays on the board. Yeah, how about that? Fell out at the very end. Try it, you'll love it. Now, demonstrations are a great way to get a discussion going in the class and relate to the real world. I love to ask questions, but so often in class, I get 2 or 3 students that raise their hand and the rest of them just are happy just to sit there and do nothing. I want to have an engaging and interactive classroom, so I use a classroom response system, sometimes called clickers. There's also free apps you have on your phone, like Pull Everywhere. One of my favorites is the low-tech version. See, B, A, C, and D. That's pretty cool. Because if you use these response systems, you can get the whole class involved in making predictions and answering questions. You can see as an instructor what they're learning, whether they get it or not. It makes them think about things as opposed to just writing it down in their notes, being a scribe. And they don't have to be embarrassed because only you see the answers, not their peers. They don't have to be embarrassed about that. Now, we like to make predictions in class. And then we'll do the experiment, and then we'll talk afterwards about what it all means. So we're going to try it right now with buoyancy. What we've got here is a tank of water and 11 different items we're going to toss into the tank of water, and we'll see whether they sink or whether they float. Now, if we had your clickers or your personal response system, we could have you vote along the way, but you have to keep track yourself. All right, let's start off with a rubber ducky. Start off easy. Rubber ducky. Float or sink? Well, that's an obvious one. You knew it was going to float. It doesn't float very well. This next one's easy. This is a rock, a piece of granite. And it sinks like a rock. Okay, you got that one. The next one's a little tricky. The next one is a golf ball. Okay, vote, golf ball. It sinks, not very quickly, a little more dense than water. A rubber stopper. All right, standard old rubber stopper. Let's see what happens. Boom, down to the bottom it goes. How about a tangerine? Well, floats pretty well. Now, softball. Softball. Look at that. Only floats about halfway down. Has about half the density of water. Let's try an apple. Have you bobbed for apples before? Yeah, that apple does a nice job, doesn't it? Floating. Hard to get with your teeth. Let's try a potato. Just a standard old potato. Sink or float? It sinks. Interesting. How about some grapes? Green grapes, some black grapes here. Yeah, they sink to the bottom. Diet root beer. No bubbles down there. Nope, it's floating quite nicely. Floating quite nicely. How about a regular sugar soda? Oh yeah, it sinks to the bottom. This brings up a great discussion about buoyancy. It's all about density. For example, an 11-pound bowling ball floats, interestingly enough. Surprise, surprise. A 13-pound bowling ball sinks. Now the students might say, well, it's heavy, that's why it sinks. But 100,000-ton aircraft carrier floats. It's all about density. Bowling balls have exactly the same size. Therefore, the heavier one is also denser, and that's why it sinks. Now, I love to have fun teaching. So I said it a long time ago, if I wasn't having fun teaching, my students wouldn't have any fun learning. I also like to make it real world. It makes it relate to what they're doing. And I like to use a lot of energy. I figure if I have a lot of energy, a lot of passion in what I'm doing, I can transfer some of that, at least anyway, to the students. Let's see an example of that. Here I've got a basketball. Camera down a little bit. I've got a basketball here. I'm going to bounce it on this tape, on this chair. Menu straight. There we go. Now I'm going to bounce the tennis ball. All right. I'm going to bounce them both together. Whoa! The tennis ball went up and hit the ceiling. Where in the world did you get the energy to do that? What's going on? Is it magic? No, it's physics! Because the basketball gave some of its energy to the tennis ball. Like you as an instructor can give some of your energy to your students. It's exciting stuff. Okay, next we've got the spinning stool. Sitting on the stool, spins around. Okay, that's like the figure skater. Things are on them, they spin faster. It's good to get the students involved in demonstrations, have them experience the science and not just talk about it. They love it. Here we go. Bricks out, spin around, bring them in, ooh, faster, slow, ooh, faster. And then I'm getting this. I love the students to do these kinds of things. Oh my goodness. All right. They like to be able to explain things that happen in the real world. This is the board. You notice how the grain is on the wood. This is the 1x12, cut into 3-inch pieces. We're going to use this to, oops, too much. Experimentation here. We're going to break this right here on the table. Normally have the students hold it like this. I don't have that right now. So let's see. Right here. Think I can do it? Students aren't sure. Use the heel of my hand here. 1, 2, 3. Hi-ya! Oh, yeah. Very cool. Now, the principle here is action and reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You can't hit without being hit. As a matter of fact, it's an interaction, my hand and the board. Forces are all interactions between two things, the earth and the moon. the hand and the board, a foot and a football. It's always an interaction. But you know what? Teaching is also an interaction between a teacher and a student, between a student and a student. You can't just convey information or give instruction in that fashion. You've got to interact to be able to really teach. I love teaching. I want to make it fun. I want to put a lot of energy into it. I want to make it real, and I want to engage the students in discussion and thinking and interaction. That's what it's all about. Now, the Pathfinders Institute, you're going to have a lot of skills. You're going to go over here. You're going to learn how to reach your students. You're going to have an amazing time this week.
Hi, David.
Hello.
I told the teachers that you would be with us live, and that after they saw all of your demonstrations, they would have undoubtedly some questions. I do invite those teachers who are with us as attendees to please use the Q&A feature on your screen. Begin typing your questions as I engage David in a discussion, and I'll turn to your remarks momentarily. So David, energy, energy, energy was repeated throughout your presentation, and I think a lot of our teachers now are going to be working at a distance to really convey that enthusiasm to their students. You too went through a virtual period of time this spring. How were you successful in still conveying all of that energy through the screen?
Well, I brought all my toys home with me. You've seen some of them today that I used. And I love being able to, they said, Dr. Wright, you actually kept the same enthusiasm and energy at home that you had in the classroom. And that was important because it's hard enough to be doing a virtual lesson to have like this, you know, teaching them like this and just telling them things. I learned a long time ago, energy is really an important aspect of how I teach. I've got to teach energetically. I've got to have enthusiasm. I've got to engage the students. I use the polling feature on Zoom. I asked them lots of questions and got their response. I wanted to get them as engaged as I possibly could. And it was a real learning curve. So you all had the same experience this spring.
How did you get the students, from you to the students, you can control that energy. How did you get them interact? I think some of our teachers are going to need to get their students interacting with one another. Do you have any tips for how they could be effective with that?
We struggled with that because a lot of them were having tough time at home, dealing with their kids being home from school and with our labs, and so we didn't know quite how to do that. So we're trying to work with things called breakout rooms we have in the Zoom and get the people into groups of 3 or 4 so they can actually interact with each other as opposed to just having an interaction in the classroom. The breakout room has to be a really big deal for labs in particular, for interaction with the students.
So most of the teachers that we have with us, the 400 or so, are leaning into computer science. Out of the 400, we had about 173 who are teaching other subjects, some of them maybe even physics, but they're trying to infuse technology and computer science into the classroom. Have you experimented a little bit with that yourself? Do you have any advice for those teachers?
Let me tell you an example. I've taught math before. And whenever I taught math, I tried to find great physical examples of what was happening. So we'd be talking about how you'd solve a physics problem using math as opposed to just putting equations up on the board. So I'd say make it as practical as you possibly can. The demo manual I put together is about physics, but physics relates to everything. It's the king of the sciences, as we say. So I would take some of the examples in the book. It'd be on your resource rack here before too much longer. There's like 82 different demos you can do, and you can relate those to the mathematics of that. You're modeling it on a computer. It's just a way to keep the thing relevant, you know, touch the real world and not just talk about the theory of things. I would have died in my physics class if I just talked about theory. I had some math teachers that thought that math was a pure science in itself. It wasn't supposed to relate to the real world. That's nonsense. You got to relate to what's happening in these kids' lives. We go on roller coasters in my physics class. There's some great equations, quadratic equations to try to explain the forces you feel on roller coasters and so forth. They go to a playground. There's all kinds of math that's tied into this. You can do some nice computer modeling. It's amazing stuff.
Well, I think for the teachers who are watching you, David, and some of the comments that are coming in, they all want to know where to get the document that you referenced. And it's a little bit of the trick of hosting a virtual conference of the time things are really happening versus your remarks. So I want to let everybody know that we did produce a list of all the exciting creative activities you do with students. We've put that on the resource hub. So for those of you who are looking for some ways to apply maybe the creativity that David showed into your own classrooms, I think you'll find that there. I think that energy and that vulnerability is why we are excited to introduce you, David, to all of our teachers. In many instances for them, this is so new. When we've met teachers before, when we're in real life, they say, I'm scared, I've never done computer science before, I know my kids need to know it, and I'm going to lean in. And I think what you're showing, you really put yourself out there, and it seems like the students respond. Is that a fair statement?
It is. They really get into it. I mean, I had so many students say, I was so afraid to be in this class. I didn't want to be here. I was scared to death. And you made it real by tying it into the real world. And I learned a long time ago when I took physics in high school, for example. This is the textbook. It was a later edition of this. You notice the name of the author of this textbook? Charles E. Dole. You cannot do that to physics students. And that was my inspiration. I had an elementary school teacher who made things fun. I learned that class can be fun, and the students will respond. He'd make it real for them. He also cared about us. You can't just teach people to be teachers. They have to care. That's a really critical element. If you care about them, you get them involved in real world kinds of things like we're talking about. You show them the way, you model it, and you take it step by step. You assume nothing. Assume they don't know what they're doing, and you'll just take them step at a time. I thought when I took my high school physics class, the guy was a great guy. He was a competent teacher, but the words passion and energy and enthusiasm never entered into the classroom. Sometimes according to reading the New York Times, for example. But I thought there ought to be a way to explain things exciting and interesting and fascinating as physics, make it live. And that's been my goal, to make it live. So they could leave the class thinking, hey, this stuff is pretty cool. The world operates under laws. I understand some of those laws now. Oh, what a deal.
Well, I think that we have some questions wanting to know where you get your activities, but I think the fresh perspective you have that the classroom needs to constantly change and be evolving very much speaks to the teachers who are pushing into the computer science space. We can't do things the way we once did. And I think even now, after the past 3 months, these teachers are feeling it even more. So we really wanted to all of the teachers who are watching and seeing David, you probably got more of a physics lesson than you were expecting, but we really loved David's energy and thought a lot of that same approach is so transferable to those of you who felt you're always trying to up your game and thereby your students benefit. So David, to close, can you give our 424 teachers their onward march inspiration for the week?
Well, the key element is professional development. That list I put together took me 40 years to put together. So I wanted to share it with some of you to save you some time. You talk to colleagues, you go to Infosys conferences, you read journal articles, you talk to your colleagues, you do all kinds of stuff, one step at a time, you introduce things. And so this week, you pay attention. How is this going to apply in my class? How can I make my class more exciting, more relevant to the real world? You'll find all kinds of things you can do to get your sparks going. You'll never be quite the same after this week. I hope, in a good way, never be quite the same. So, but just be patient. It took me a long time. I started off in a very traditional role in the teacher, did the same thing I'd seen done. I think I saw 1 or 2 demonstrations when I was in college. You can do it. And be yourself. I would say, learn how to be yourself. And you are you. You've got certain talents and energies and insights that nobody else has. People will be excited to have you as a teacher because you're doing your best to improve each day, to make it relevant, fun, exciting, and tie it all together. So they'll have a great time in class as you will teaching. I think you're in a great place to be right now. It's awesome.
Thanks, David. I couldn't say it better. You're now an ambassador for our institute. I just want to say thank you for the time you put into preparing for the teachers and for being here tonight with me. We'll put information about how you can reach David on the Resource Hub. And again, you'll find the whole document he has referenced there if you'd like to download and print. And for the moment, David, we'll say good night for now, and thanks again for being with us.
If you don't get some of this stuff, just ask questions. I'll be able to fill in the gaps for you.
Great.
Bye, bye, everybody.
So much, okay.
Great being here with you.
So our next speaker is Paulina Chavez. Paulina is a young actress who's in the new Netflix TV series, The Expanding Universe of Ashley Garcia. Ashley Garcia is a 15-year-old robotics engineer and rocket scientist who lands her dream job at NASA. Paulina has prepared some remarks specifically for all of you, and I challenge those Texans I mentioned to really listen up because there's something for you at the end of her remarks. Let's see what she has to say.
Hi everyone, welcome to the 2020 Pathfinders Summer Institute. Having a mom as an educator, I love being around teachers. You guys are heroes to so many kids and their families. I'm Paulina Chavez and I'm an actor. I'm also known as Ashley Garcia on the Netflix series The Expanding Universe of Ashley Garcia. Hi, I'm Ashley Garcia. I'm so excited! I am the youngest person ever to earn a PhD. I just got a job at JPL in California where I'm going to make robots for NASA. Theo Victor! What are you doing here? Moving in, like we planned. Although the show is a comedy, Ashley's story touches on real issues, and it's an honor representing a character who is a brilliant young Latina working in her dream job in STEM. There are so many Ashleys out in the real world, but they aren't showcased in TV or film. The University of Southern California conducted a study and found that of the 100 top grossing films each year prior to 2018, only 3% of Latino actors were in lead or co-lead roles. And to top it off, of that 3%, only half of them were women. Women and Latinos are chronically underrepresented, not only in the entertainment industry, but in computer science and engineering fields as well. It's not because they don't have the skills or competence, but because of the lack of opportunity and role models. As I begin my career, I want to use my platform to break stereotypes and showcase Latinas in positive roles. I believe by doing this, it will inspire our youth to do amazing things, including pursuing careers in STEM. You as teachers play an important role in the development of children and their confidence. I grew up surrounded by teachers, so I saw firsthand the hard work and planning and preparation that you guys do throughout the year. I was a first grader when one day after school, I was roaming the halls and I stumbled into the cafeteria where I saw my art teacher, Mr. Dickerson, hold rehearsal with the drama team for their yearly productions. And that day I knew I wanted to be part of the drama team. And throughout my years in Sky Harbor Dolphin Drama, I knew this was my passion. To this day, I have the support from my parents, family, friends, and Mr. Dickerson. And I learned that hard work, dedication, and self-discipline is the key to success and to doing whatever you set your mind to. Thank you all so much for all the important work that you do, and a special shout out to all the teachers from Texas. Bye.
Thank you, Paulina, for taking time to develop that message for our teachers. Our final speaker of the evening is Debbie Sterling. Debbie is founder and CEO of Goldilocks, the award-winning children's multimedia company known for disrupting the pink aisle in toy stores. Debbie is an engineer, she's an entrepreneur, and she's a spokesperson for getting more girls involved in STEM. I think for those teachers of you who are trying more and more to get girls involved in your computer science clubs and in your classrooms and in your maker spaces, we really hope tonight's discussion with Debbie brings you inspiration. After this brief video, which will give you a little bit more insight about Goldilocks, Debbie is here live from California to have a chat with me. And again, I invite all of you to start thinking of questions you may want to ask Debbie in the Q&A chat. Let's see a little bit more about Goldie Blocks.
Engineers build our entire world. For every girl that loves making things and creativity, engineering could be a great route for them. My name is Debbie Sterling. I'm the founder and CEO of Goldie Blocks. When I first became obsessed with this idea of getting girls into engineering, I knew I had to innovate something. At the time, there wasn't a single children's character who was a girl and a builder. So today's girls will be tomorrow's leaders.
Hi, Debbie. Thanks so much. We're beaming in, just so everyone knows, from California, and I'm covering the East Coast from New York. So we're covered. Debbie, you know by now we have an audience full of teachers. It's always nice to show a successful person and to think back. It had to have started somewhere. There was a teacher along the way who was really the inspiration for you, or the person who instilled confidence for you to achieve what you have. Can you share with the teachers that story?
Yes. Well, I've had so many teachers along the way who have really shaped my life, you know, but there's one in particular that really stands out. Her name is Mary Verley, and she was my high school math teacher. And math at the time was my favorite subject, and I asked her to write my recommendation letter for college. And she said, well, what do you plan on majoring in? I'll write about it in the letter. And I had no idea at the time what I wanted to be when I grew up. And she told me, well, I think you should consider engineering. I think you'd be really great at it. And back then, I actually didn't really know what engineering was. And it sounded kind of intimidating and a little scary, but I just kind of smiled and nodded and said, sure. And then sure enough, her recommendation letter was outstanding. I think it helped me get into Stanford, which was my dream school. And once I got there, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try engineering because of her. And I ended up falling in love with it. And I never, ever would have even considered it if it weren't for her.
This is important. These conversations that our teachers are having with young people, you never know what's ahead. Debbie, I know you have a strong philosophy toward promoting early exposure to STEM and computer science for girls and for children. Why is that early stage investment so important?
Well, I think it's so important for many reasons that you really can't, in my opinion, you can't start too young. And some of the research that I've read shows that actually kids around the age 3 or 4 start to form their gender identities, right? And I have a 3.5-year-old son, so I'm seeing this now. Like, I'm a boy and this is what boys do. And it's right around that age that in our pop culture, the stereotypes start to set in where boys are the builders and girls are the princesses. You've got like the superhero, the princess, and I really believe that these gender stereotypes kind of start kids really early on this path of, you know, boys build and make and create, girls dress up, and I think that for me, I think that there's really an opportunity, and this is what I've been focusing on at Goldie Blocks, starting in at that young age with what kids watch and with what they play with, to really disrupt those stereotypes so that by the time they're in your classrooms, they're not thinking to themselves, oh, this isn't for me.
So that is such an important inspiration to the K-5 teachers who are with us, because we're often dispelling the myth that students light up in middle school or high school. That's when we have to get them and keep girls engaged in computer science. But it's really everyone who's out there teaching coding at the kindergarten level or thinking of creative ways to reach first and second graders that starts to have a ripple effect. So Goldie Blocks, we showed a brief intro, but when did the moment strike that you realized we needed new characters and new toys that would disrupt this industry as we knew it?
Well, there was a very specific moment that I had this kind of eureka aha, and it happened actually with a group of friends. We had started this club, if you will, called Idea Brunch, where once a month we'd go over to somebody's house for breakfast, and we'd all just sit around, and each person would take a turn getting up in front of the room and sharing a big idea. And it was in an idea brunch that my girlfriend, Christy, got up and started complaining about how few women there were in our engineering classes in college. And she said that she got interested in engineering at a very young age because she had 3 older brothers and she played with their construction toys. And that her building. And so as she grew up, the only girl in the family, she thought to herself, of course I want to be an engineer, but realized that, and as she told this story, I thought back to my childhood with my younger sister, and we never played with construction toys because they were always in the blue aisle, you know, for boys. Yeah. So that's when it really hit me that, gosh, like maybe I could get more girls from a very young age into these subjects by making it fun and trying to invent toys that get them excited about engineering. And as I looked more and more into the toy aisle, I found, gosh, the most popular toys are the ones that have entertainment characters attached, whether it's Star Wars or Dora the Explorer. And that's when I saw there was an even larger problem where all the engineer characters, whether it's Bill Nye the Science Guy, Thomas the Train, the Science Kid, the list went on and on and on, and it was all boys. So so that's really what I've been devoting my life to, is to try to make really fun toys and media to you know, specifically focus at getting girls excited about these subjects.
I want to ask you a little bit of advice, but I had invited teachers to also please feel free to start writing into the Q&A box. So I have this scrolling list that's coming in, and I'm trying to respectfully look at you, but seeing it come in. On the point about media, I think it's very interesting some of the discoveries you've had about reaching students through different mechanisms. And one of the questions that came in, how do you get girls interested in computer science when YouTube seems to be so popular, like the YouTube channel? Maybe you want to share a little bit about your approach to what's happening on television.
Yes, so I've spent the last 8 years really trying to figure this out. How would I make STEM, you know, engineering, computer science exciting for kids? And I think it was a few years ago, I started to notice this trend where kids were spending more time on YouTube than watching traditional linear television. And what I also observed was, like, gosh, the type of stuff they like watching on YouTube are DIY videos. Like, they are spending hours and hours watching influencers on YouTube in their living rooms making slime. And I was like, that's kind of like chemistry. Wait, there's STEM in that, like, that they already like. And we decided to try out actually starting to make videos similar to the types of videos that kids already were liking watching on YouTube, where we would kind of do like a very casual sort of blog style video of young girls making stuff, whether it's like making your own cell phone charger, making your own slime, making your own little robots, you know, whatever. And we found that that was an amazing, really relatable and fun way for kids to learn about engineering, to learn about computer science in a way that they like learning now, which is just watching people on YouTube. And this thing kind of took off, and now our YouTube channel has over 650,000 subscribers. And we're continuing to, and actually one of the things I'm excited about that we're developing now, we haven't even launched it yet, is taking these concepts directly into computer science. I'm going to show you how to code a website. I'm going to show you how to code it. And so I think there's so much, I'm seeing it really resonating, because I think that kids really, they relate to and they think these influencers are so cool, right? So soon as the influencer shows them, hey, I'm into coding, I'll show you how to code this thing that you would want to make anyway. We're just finding it really works.
We thank you for that. We have one of the teachers who said she's used Goldie Blocks extensively in the library. She loves there's a story to go with the building challenges. The question is, will you continue to develop challenges centered on the story, especially adaptable to the classroom?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so that was a big insight very early on when I was developing Goldie Blocks. I didn't want to just take construction toys and make them pink, you know, to appeal to girls. I really did a bunch of research and found that that to really get girls interested in these subjects, you have to give them a reason why they're building the thing or coding the thing that you're wanting them to do. Girls want to know why, and they want it to have a purpose, and they love it even more when there's a story attached, characters they look up to, they relate to, and even more, girls, they want to change the world. They want to make the world a better place. So if you have stories where characters are doing that, then they really aspire to do that. So that was always at the heart of everything we've made at Goldie Blocks from the very beginning. All of our toys had illustrated storybooks inside, so it really gave context to the building. And we're continuing to do that now. The company has evolved a lot over the last 8 years since I started it. And what we've started to do is take those stories from kind of inside the toy box actually onto YouTube and social media. So the storytelling with cool influencers and young people talking about the stuff they're making and why has kind of become the next iteration of this same concept. And we are starting to think about how we could bring that into the classroom. Really, just in the past few months since COVID hit, it's become such a huge need to entertain kids and make learning fun. And that's a thing that we have been really honing for years and years. And so it's become, you know, a real rally cry now at Goldie Blocks, is thinking like, wow, we have this amazing ability and skill set and expertise on making these subjects fun. And we've been doing it for a long time in the consumer space and in the entertainment space. Let's take these learnings and maybe offer some stuff and help teachers in these virtual classrooms. And that's something we're really trying to figure out right now.
I'm sure like ears are perking up hearing that. I wanted to know, obviously you're an entrepreneur in business and you've been successful. Can you share some of the mindset or the advice that would be transferable to a teacher who's, you know, dealing with new material, trying to move into this new space that can be kind of intimidating for the 173 for whom it's new? What have you learned as an entrepreneur that's a little like nugget of wisdom to share with the teachers?
Well, I think the biggest thing I've learned as an entrepreneur is just getting comfortable with failure. Like, I'm really good at failing now, so I'll brag about it. But I think that in order to be successful in entrepreneurship, you know, you get sand kicked in your face, you get knocked down, you have this vision of what you're trying to do, and obstacles just come in your path. And what I'm most proud of, and the only reason I'm still here building Goldie Blocks 8 years later, is every time I've gotten knocked down, I think for me, it's believing in the importance of what I'm working on, and the importance of, you know, specifically getting more girls into STEM, which I'm so passionate about. It's this, you know, it's this mission that's bigger than myself. So I don't let the obstacles get in my way. And, you know, I always manage to just plow through, or, you know, door A closes, find door B. I guess it's grit and determination and belief in this bigger cause. And over the years now, I think that's built up a real resilience, where I don't get, you know, when challenges come in front of me, they really don't get me down as much as they used to in the beginning, because I know how I've been able to overcome so much. And so, and so I think I love trying to instill that in young people. And I think that the key to it is really just admitting when you don't know something and not being embarrassed about that. The only way I'm able to get past these obstacles is, I just ask enough people and get enough help. And I think that, when I was a student, I was always afraid to do that because I had this ego and I wanted to be really smart and figure it out on my own and pretend like I knew stuff, and when I didn't. And as soon as I started kind of just being vulnerable and admitting when I don't know something and getting help on stuff, I've been able to pull enough favors to get past all the obstacles along the way.
I think it's great advice, and it lets me say to the teachers that we are always promoting their learning. I mean, they're going to be in the classroom for the next 5 days, but also we're trying to build a community of teachers who are now Pathfinders alumni, so they can go to each other and ask those questions and know it's okay to be moving into this space and having some challenges. So I see other questions coming in. Debbie, we might send them your way after this event, but I will share with everyone, we've had a few questions on what do the toys look like, what age are they appropriate for, and I want to just mention that at our award ceremony on Thursday, we do have a few Goldilocks items that we'll be giving to some of the teachers who win the various competitions that we have through the week. So some of you will get to learn a little bit more, but Debbie, for the moment, I'll just say thank you for making the time, dialing in, given all going on in your life at the moment. And thanks for giving inspiring words to the teachers. We really appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really wouldn't be where I am today without all of the teachers that have inspired me. I think it's the most noble profession. And I'm really genuinely interested in figuring out ways that I and/or Goldilocks can be helpful to teachers. So if anyone's interested, you can reach out to me, Debbie at goldiblocks.com. I'm here. I'm super passionate about this stuff. And thanks to Infosys Foundation for having me.
Oh, great. All right. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Well, I hope all of you took away some inspiration and insight to set the stage for your week of learning. I want to just take a quick moment before we close the evening to go through some important housekeeping items and logistics. I'm going to try to be very brief, but touch upon some key items that I think will make your week tick a little bit more fluidly. Given that we are virtual this summer, we anticipate there are likely to be a number of technical questions or questions about where to be or how to access Zoom links. We have an entire team ready to help you each of the 5 days, starting when your classroom instruction commences around 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern through the evening. So please do see, you'll see an image kind of like the one in the upper right-hand corner of this screen, which shows you the help desk. It will be functioning as a chat room, so please pose your questions. They will be held there and responded to as quickly as we can. There's also the Resources Center. This is a place where you're going to find more detailed bios of the speakers from tonight. You're going to find the physics demos that David Wright referred to. You'll find some other background information for each of the evening events, and as well as a printed version of that email we sent you with a lot of words in it called the Know Before You Attend. So anything you may need, you're likely to find it in the Help Desk Resource Center. And if not, by now you have the Pathfinders team email, please reach out. We are all here to support you and make your week as exceptional as it can be. So in addition to all of the great learning that will happen in the classroom, we want you to have some fun. We want you to connect with one another. So we have an evening program that will take place on Tuesday night. There is an escape room. I haven't done this yet, but I hear these are fantastic. So we've asked you to RSVP so that we can build individual teams. If you have not RSVP'd, but you've heard a little more and you're enticed, please just let us know. There's still time as of tomorrow morning to get placed onto a team. This will be led by a company called Puzzle Break. They are the experts. We're turning it over to them, and it should be a fun night. Wednesday night, we're going to have Family Code Night. So if you have a child at home or one related to you, K through 5, bring them. John Pierce of Family Code Night is going to lead us in an hour exercise that I think will be fun both for those families as well as other educators who might be working with high school honor society students, and they're looking for good projects to work with elementary school kids to share your computer science insight. And lastly, don't forget, please, to on Thursday night, reserve the 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern slot, because that will be the closing. We're going to keep it short and sweet this year, but the most fun part of it is that we get to give awards that recognize all of you. We've also introduced this summer a couple of workshops, and while there are different sessions happening, both are really trying to get at your experience as teachers surviving, thriving through this COVID spring semester. We have one of the sessions that did have a cap to the number of attendees, and I'm happy to say that we are going to host a second session so that the 120 of you who are on the wait list have a chance to participate. So for all of that, the evening and the workshops, keep an eye open to your inbox. We'll be always emailing you the relevant Zoom links to participate. We have a teacher lounge. For those of you who are teachers, clearly you know all that goes on in a teacher lounge. It's the place that all the great ideas and chat takes place, and that's exactly what we have built for you. You'll see in the lower right corner of this screen an image of what you'll find on the platform. In the front, those blue strips are mini chat rooms that we've established to make the 400 of you down to some smaller groups. We've done that by grade level. That's just to get things started. But please, if you're a high school teacher wanting to pop into the pre-K through 5 room, please do. The idea is that during your lunchtime or during the coffee half hours that you will be able to engage in a chat. There's a fun little strip that's there, if you can see it, called the Teacher Shout Out Board. And throughout the week, we've invited your PD provider instructors and facilitators. We gave them a little hint before this all kicked off. We've asked them to recognize those of you who are doing really well. Those of you who maybe started at a base level and are skyrocketing, showing growth, showing enthusiasm, and there might be some points attached to how much your name gets onto that board. So do check it out, and to the PDs, please be sure to name the teachers who are doing well. There's also a strip saying chat with PDs. That's really a chance for those of you who might be exploring some other courses for future professional development to ask the PDs questions. And you'll see at the very back, we're trying to make it easier for all of you to meet one another. We know there's not the same proximity and interaction that you would have on the campus of Indiana University, but we still think, and we're believing in you, that you're now so accustomed to chat features and emails that we've put the class lists for all the courses on the back wall of the teacher lounge. So be sure to do a little bit of snooping to see who's in your class as well as others. You can tell subliminally, we're encouraging you to wear your hats. Wear them as much as you can. Take photos, be creative. And when you do, we ask that you engage in social media to talk about, hopefully, the very positive experience you're having. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, we're on TikTok, Facebook page, where many of you have engaged in the lead up to this event. Our communications team is paying attention. We're keeping track. And on Thursday, there are special awards given to those of you who really knocked that out of the park. This virtual platform lets us have something called a leaderboard. And the leaderboard you'll see when you go onto the campus is like a little trophy in the upper right-hand corner, keeping track of those teachers who are the most actively engaged on the site. You'll see there the whole list of points that you get for accessing the resource hub, or putting something in your backpack, or engaging in a chat. I'll let you explore that a little bit tonight and tomorrow to get familiar, but as well, we'll be giving awards for the winners of the leaderboard. And lastly, the teacher survey. This is so important for helping our team improve upon the Pathfinders model. I'll say once, and now I've said a few times, this is the first time virtually. So we ask that you all have patience. We're in it together alongside of you, and we want you to have a very enriching, deep experience. So with that, I will turn to the next slide and just wish all of you a super successful learning week. This is campus. This is our virtual campus. Everything you need, you can find here. And again, please know there is a whole team, the foundation team, as well as our events team and engineers and tech folks who are ready to help you. So we wish you well. Don't forget, set your alarms. Your classes start at 11 o'clock Eastern on Monday morning. And the best way to get there is through the purple graphic on the left. Each of the PD providers will have their own booth that sits behind those classrooms, and they all have a bit of personality. So I think it'll be fun for you to discover in the morning. I may pause just now to see if any questions are coming in through the Q&A just before we close. And please know if I don't get to your question that we will be keeping a list of responses and other frequently asked questions on the resource hub to help you. So with that, I think I'm going to close the evening program. Wish you all well, and thank you again for being with us.